And welcome to Juck on Bucks. Appreciate you so much for joining me. Not a show, not a full show, just kind of a segment that I wanted to do because I saw something and it really bothered me. And I wanted to get into it. While it is old news, I think it is very relevant right now, more so than ever, as we just saw where we're seeing SEC Media Days go on right now and what their coaches are saying and stumping for. Next week, we're going to see the Big Ten do the same. It's going to sound quite different. But yesterday, we did our live show at 7:30 p.m. That was Tuesday. Going to do it again on Thursday. I know that Tuesday, so at the end of the show, I do my segments. I like to go through the comment section and hit on your questions or comments that are pertinent to the conversation. And when I went to do that, it was a lot of, everybody was talking to each other and I missed a lot of things. So what can happen is somebody can sit here in the StreamYard while I'm doing the show and star the questions. So at the end, I can just pull those up. So hopefully Thursday, I can get somebody to do that for me. And then I can get to all those, the pertinent questions to the show or anything else that you guys got for me. And we'll try to make that happen on Thursday at 7:30 here at Juck on Bucks. Now, let's get to the topic at hand today. And the topic is the playoff moving forward. And what's going on here at SEC Media Days is what we expected, right? You're going to tout your conference at Media Days. They all do. But at SEC Media Days, it's a little different. And it's a little different in the fact that the SEC not wants the power that it was over college football, and everybody recognizes that. The coaches still speaking as though it is. And I want you to listen to what Kirby Smart had to say yesterday on an interview that he had with Rick Neuheisel.
Well, I think it's the selection process that comes about.
So the selection process is he's talking about, and what they want at the SEC is for a strength of schedule metric to be built in to the college football committee in the way they select teams. They also want the 5-11 format, which is the 5 automatic qualifiers for the conference champions, and then 11 at-large bids. And they don't want those 11 at-large bids unless you build in this metric that adjusts for strength of schedule, which is obviously a very hotly debated topic as to how you can possibly judge strength of schedule accurately when there's not a lot of cross-conference play. So Kirby continues.
How are the teams going to be selected? The at-large teams, whether that's 5-11 or that's the AQ, and they still have some at-large, is who's selecting them and what are they going about to do it? I just don't feel like it's equitable or fair to say that the loss column is the only column that matters.
Nobody has ever said the loss column is the only column that matters. It's difficult to judge two teams from two separate conferences playing different competition without at least factoring in wins, losses, big wins against teams, losses against subpar teams. All these things matter.
I think then historically that's what we've looked at. I mean, when you looked at the rankings of who was at the brink of getting in, we only have a small sample size of the 12-team playoff, super small. But when you look at it, it's just, okay, well, how many losses do they have?
That is disingenuous garbage. What he's trying to say there is that that's the only thing they look at. They go by the loss column, okay? There has been a period of time, I don't know, days past, when we would look at a team and kind of throw them out the door as soon as they got their first loss. And then if they got their second, for sure. In the era of this new playoff, that's not what we've seen. That's not what we've seen at all towards the bottom. Of course, we know what he's angry about. He's angry and stumping for the SEC because they had three lost teams, and that's how we characterize them at the end of the year. We just characterize them as that because they were all teams that had 3 losses, that were pretty good teams that could have potentially been in the playoff, could not have been. It just so happens they were going up against a couple of teams that put together a better body of work on the season. And you can objectively say that there is a team out here with 3 losses that may be better than a team with 1 loss. But when we factor in what did those teams do with the rest of their season? Who were the teams that they lost to? Were they bringing a consistent version of themselves week after week? That's the hardest part in college football, bringing your consistent version. And he goes on to make a point that I can't stand.
No, I mean, Rick,
taking the easy way.
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Who are you taking? Neutral site, Indiana and Ole Miss, Indiana and Alabama, and Indiana and South Carolina. I would love to hear you on air tell me who you're picking.
I'm taking the SEC team every time.
Okay, well.
So this line of thinking is something that we've done for years. I really can't stand to hear a head coach talking like this because who would you take? They're getting this reputation in the SEC, and I've seen it recently. It's pretty funny. Undefeated in hypothetical matchups, because they do constantly go back to this. Now, what did we see out of Indiana last year? We saw them play a really weak schedule. They played a team with tough trenches in Michigan that was really one of the only ones that they played and beat that were really tough up front. So when we looked at how they played against Ohio State, how they played against Notre Dame, granted, the two teams that literally played for the national championship, they didn't look good up front. And you could say, okay, well, based on that, if I were to see them against Ole Miss last year, I don't think they would do very good against Ole Miss. I would probably pick Ole Miss, and that's fine. The thing is, Ole Miss didn't earn the opportunity to play in the game. So it's not a hypothetical matchup we need to play. They didn't earn the opportunity because they didn't bring their consistent Ole Miss top-tier team week in and week out. They required 3 mulligans to get in this playoff. They lost 3 games, and they lost to inferior teams in Kentucky at home, at Florida when everything was on the line, and they lost one more. Who the hell else did they lose to? They lost to LSU, which was, that's fine. When we look at Alabama, the other 3-loss team, one of the 3, Alabama lost to an inferior Oklahoma team who was having a terrible season. They got pounded by them. They lost to Tennessee, which was a pretty close game, but Tennessee, as we know, wasn't that great. No shame in that, whatever. But then they lost to Vanderbilt, and we found out later on. At the time, it looked like, wow, maybe Vanderbilt really is something. No, Vanderbilt was not. They were a 6-win team. So you had 2 really poor losses. Now, we could say Indiana versus Alabama. Who do I think would win? I can't tell you with any certainty who would win because I don't know which Alabama is showing up. Is it the one who played the first half against Georgia, or is it the one that played against Vanderbilt in Oklahoma or Tennessee? Like, the guys lost 3 games. You don't just get to say, we think they're the better team, therefore we're going to put them in over the team that won 11 out of 12 of their games. Now, we can go back and talk about Indiana's schedule, and, I agree. But here's the thing. We have to come to the understanding in conference play now that since they've decided to expand the SEC and the Big Ten so large, that there are going to be years where these Big Ten or SEC schedules are much easier than others. Texas was very easy last year compared to most of the SEC. Florida was incredibly hard. It's just going to happen. But you got to kind of come to a point where, okay, that is a Big Ten team playing a Big Ten schedule. No, it doesn't look like it's great at the end when we look at the Big Ten teams that it beat. And had they lost a second game, I'd be all for this argument. But the fact that they went 11-1 and the only team they lost to played in the national championship, it's a pretty damn good season. And it's a season that deserves the opportunity. And we always go back to this. Who's getting in? Is it the best team, or is it the most deserving, or is it a combination of both? Now, they've always said the parameters that it is the best team, but it's never really been the best team. It's been the best and most deserving. It's a combination of both. Otherwise, we'd have seen 2023 Georgia in the playoffs, 2015 Ohio State in the playoffs. 2 teams that would have been favorites over the entire field that year. They did not get in because of a loss, because they didn't deserve to get in because of a loss. So it's a combination of both best and most deserving. Now, when we look at those 3-loss SEC teams, were they deserving of the opportunity to get to show how good they were in the playoffs? No, they weren't. Not a one of them. Not a one of them was deserving of that opportunity, so they didn't get to go. So what they want to do in the SEC is change the rules by how we choose the teams. They want it to be built in that their SEC schedule is stronger than anybody else's, and that therefore they can afford to lose more games. But here's the thing. They've always been able to lose one more game than everybody else. They get an extra game bonus. What they're asking for in this Indiana argument is a 2-game bonus. They want to be able to say, our 3-loss team is the same as your 1-loss team. And that can't happen. But here's the thing. If we go to the 5-11 format, this argument never ends. Kirby continues.
That inherently
on air. I said that on air.
That inherently for me, and I'm not picking on anybody. I want the best teams to be able to go in, and if that's 10 Big Ten teams, then that's what it should be. But they would argue there's going to be bias in that. I would argue history and NFL draft picks and attendance and all the things that go into picking the best players. I mean, go to the NFL teams and ask them who they think the best teams are and who they want to see play each other. They want to see each of these teams play each other.
Nobody cares who the NFL wants to see play in the college football playoff. Literally not relevant to the argument, nor is attendance, Kirby. Attendance to your games is not relevant to who's the better team. You want to talk about NFL talent? Let's talk about it. Based on this logic, and Kirby's logic is these teams, Alabama, Ole Miss, South Carolina, have much more NFL talent. They're more talented than Indiana. Based on that logic, essentially what he's saying is what? Doesn't matter if they win or lose. They're more talented. So by the same logic, Kirby, what if they lose 4 games? If they lost 4 games, any one of those 3 teams, and I said to Kirby, who would win? South Carolina with 4 losses or Indiana last year? You know what he'd have said? South Carolina. And a lot of people would as well. Well, do they deserve it? What would he say? If he said yes, everybody laugh at him. But if he said no, well, why not? They have the better players. They're the ones that have the better players. You know this. You just said it. They just happen to lose 1 more game. They clearly have the better players. We know this. Better players don't make a better team always. And in this case, if they lost 5 games, like what is the cutoff where Kirby would say, okay, that's too many losses. You didn't show us enough, even though I know you got better players. And I still think you'd beat Indiana, which is what he would believe. You lost 5 games now. That's too many. Where is his cutoff? That's what I want to know. And that's why it's such poor logic. Yes, they have better players by and large at Ole Miss, South Carolina, and Alabama than Indiana ever has or ever will. There's no doubt about that. Did they put together a body work that deserves to get the position over Indiana? I would argue no, they did not. And I'm not a Big Ten homer. Most of you know that if you listen to me. Some of you are very irritated by that, and I get it. I just view this very differently. I view conference foes as our closest enemy. That's it. That's how I view it. They're not on my team. I actually identify much more with SEC fans. I think the Ohio State fan base is much more SEC flavor than any Big Ten fan base. And I think programs like Georgia and Texas and Oklahoma are much more relatable to us, the Ohio State fan base, than any in the Big Ten. And that's just how I feel about it. I feel no sense of community with the rest of the Big Ten. So I'm not up here stumping for the Big Ten. I'm talking about fair and just. Kirby is not. Now, what we're going to hear next week at the Big Ten Media Days are the Big Ten coaches coming out and refuting all this nonsense that the SEC coaches are spewing here. And they're going to be pushing for the 4-4, 2-2, 1-1, or 1-3, which are vastly different. The question is, are they going to come to an agreement? The SEC wants 5-11 now. The Big Ten wants the automatic qualifiers. Are they going to come to an agreement, or they don't have to? As Greg Sankey said, if they don't come to an agreement, they just roll into the 12 team again next year, and everything is status quo as it is. My hope is that they go with the 4-4, 2-2, 1-3. I've explained this many, many times why I think that's the best system. 3 at-large bids. One of them will probably be Notre Dame most years, which means there's 2 at-large bids up for grabs. That's why it's important to go with the 4-4-2-2-1-3 versus the 4-4-2-2-1-1, where Notre Dame gets that at-large bids, and there are no at-large bids. This is where I differentiate between Josh Pate and Joel Klatt. I believe that you need those few at-large bids to have that incentive to play out-of-conference games early in the season and to give them meaning. There has to be some kind of meaning attached. If there is no at-large bid that you're going for, if you screw up in your conference schedule, then there's no reason to play your best and your hardest and your star players in out-of-conference games. If the at-large bids exist at the tail end of that thing, then I have every reason as a coach, if I'm Ryan Day playing Texas, I have every reason to win that game more than just pride, but to play my best guys the whole game, because if I don't make it in the automatic qualifying in my conference, then I've got the chance at getting an at-large bid. And that incentivizes me to not only schedule big out-of-conference games, but to actually want to win them for more than pride. We've seen how it works in bowl games, expecting teams to play for pride. It doesn't work. So there has to be those at-large bids. We're going to see this argument next week with the Big Ten. They'll be stumping for the 4-4-2-2-1 probably. I hope that ends up being the 4-4-2-2-1-3. But what I really hope is we can hear the end of this nonsense from the SEC. I just want a little self-awareness. I want to hear a little self-awareness from a guy like Kirby Smart, who people want to anoint as the voice of the coaching, the voice of college football coaches. They want to give that Nick Saban kind of title and roll that over to him. And Nick was a big SEC homer too. But this kind of argument that he's making, there's just so many holes in it. You can shoot holes all through it. And I would love to ask him, Kirby, what if all those teams had 4 losses? You would say the same thing, wouldn't you? I think that Kirby's full of shit. I've always thought that Kirby's full of shit, though I do respect him. You'd say the same exact thing. They don't deserve it. Part of being a winning college football team, one deserving of the playoffs, is consistency. And those teams were anything but consistent. They lost to crap teams and played terrible. So would they beat Indiana? Depends. Which Alabama's showing up? Which Ole Miss is showing up? I don't know. Indiana was consistent. Indiana played a Big Ten schedule. Indiana deserved that playoff spot. And losing like they did to Notre Dame, a team that made it to the national championship, doesn't change that. And losing to Ohio State like they did, the team that won the national championship, doesn't change that. Now, Indiana's done themselves no favors, as they had 3 cream puffs out of conference last year. They're doing it again this year. And next year, they just canceled their game with Virginia and added another FCS team, Kennesaw State. So it's clear that they don't really understand or care that at 10-2, they'd have missed the playoffs. That would have been really embarrassing for the Big Ten if a 10-2 Big Ten team missed the playoffs to a 9-3 SEC team. At any rate, I would love to see the Big Ten come down with a rule that you got to play at least one P4 out of conference game. This 3 FCS this is just total garbage. It's embarrassing to the league, really. And Curt Cignetti, embarrassing to the league in more ways than one. But, anyway, my thoughts on him. So anyway, those are my thoughts today on what Kirby had to say. Please join me tomorrow for our live show Thursday night. That'll be at 7:30. And I'm not sure what topics we're going to go over yet, but, I always find something. And looking for you guys to bring it in the comments section. Hopefully somebody can star it. Please like the video today, and I will talk to you soon. Juck 'em Bucks out.